As well as her mother Patty and several others that could be easily accounted for, she had received a call that afternoon from someone called Alyssa. 6-year-old Emma then asked to talk to the police again. She now had a new story that seemed scared to tell the detective. She said that her half-sister had been the one to get her to knock on Elizabeth's door that afternoon. Her half-sister was 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante. Emma said that when the two were outside playing together, Alyssa came and joined them and encouraged Emma to leave them alone. But Elizabeth said she had to head home and started walking off. This timed perfectly with the call that came from Alyssa. Emma walked back to her house and stayed outside playing alone, leaving Elizabeth and Alyssa out together. A while later, Emma, who was now back in her garden, fell over and caught herself on some thorns. She called out for help. Alyssa heard her from her bedroom and came outside. Emma said as she was helping her, she noticed something that looked like blood on Alyssa's clothes. Detectives asked Alyssa a few routine questions, and despite the fact she seemed open and forthcoming, something about what Emma had told them wasn't sitting right. If what Emma was saying was true, it meant that she hadn't been the last person to see Elizabeth that day. As far as they now knew, it was actually 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante. It was now 48 hours later, and the investigating team had to regroup. It was now glaringly obvious that Elizabeth had not run away. She had either been led somewhere or forced somewhere, and officers started looking closer to home. As they began doing rounds of the houses again, a search party inside the woods made a strange discovery. A group of volunteers had stumbled upon a huge hole that had been dug up, then covered back over. They alerted police right away, but there was nothing under the soil. There was still no sign of Elizabeth or anything belonging to her in that area. When detectives had been at the Bustamante house talking to Emma and Alyssa, they had noticed several holes in the garden that looked similar in size and shape to this one. Given this, a warrant was issued to properly and intensely search the home. Although Elizabeth definitely hadn't been there that day, she would often go over and play, so they needed to take a good look around. Everything seemed normal and in order, until they entered Alyssa's room. It painted a very troubling and chilling picture. Everything was everywhere, and there was writing all over the walls, some parts in blood. There was also a drawing of an outline of a person with the name Emma next to it, her 6-year-old sister. Cards from her father, who was in prison, were scattered around the room, and, buried under everything, detectives found Alyssa's diary. One entry read, "If I don't talk about it, I bottle it up, and when I explode, someone's going to die." They also noticed a paragraph that was scribbled over in blue pen. Fortunately, investigators were able to uncover some of the original writing by shining a light on the back of the paper. 2 words stood out: slit and throat. Despite Alyssa saying she had been at school that day, it would turn out she had actually skipped lessons, and her whereabouts around the time Elizabeth was last seen, as Emma was saying goodbye to her, weren't able to be confirmed by anyone either. Things were slowly being pieced together, but there were still so many gaps. Alyssa's diary was seized by the FBI and handed over to Sergeant David Rice, who was now preparing to interview the team. Born in 1994, Alyssa came from a troubled and very broken family. Both her parents had substance addictions. Her father was in and out of prison, and her mother would often leave the family home on drugs binges. Eventually, Alyssa and her siblings went to live with her grandparents, Karen and Gary, who soon gained full custody of them. Karen said she adored Alyssa, and although the children had had a tough life, she did her best to raise them well, shower them with love and care, and be a constant and supportive presence in their lives. As she entered her teenage years, Alyssa started self-harming and expressing suicidal feelings. She was admitted into a psychiatric hospital after she overdosed and began to cut words into her arms. Doctors that assessed her described her as violent and angry. She was diagnosed with severe depression and prescribed antidepressants. When she was released, things only began to get worse and more concerning. On her various social media platforms, she changed her list of hobbies to killing people and cutting. She often told friends and her boyfriend she wanted to know what it was like to kill someone and had a dream of burning down a house with a family inside. Her Twitter feed talked about a hatred of authority and people telling her what to do. One of her posts read, "Bad decisions make great stories." She also posted a video to her YouTube channel called "Idiots Getting Electrocuted by Electric Fence." The video showed her trying to get her two brothers to touch a fence that she knew would electrocute them. A disturbing pattern of behaviour was clear to see, and the more the FBI looked into her background, the more they found pointed towards her being a dangerous individual that wanted to inflict pain on people in the worst ways imaginable. After going through her diary some more, Sergeant Rice asked Alyssa to come in for a formal interview alongside her grandmother and a juvenile officer. He said as the interview progressed, his tactic was to ask a question and sit in silence for as long as possible, sometimes for up to a minute at a time. He said as uncomfortable as it was, he knew the team would break eventually if there was something to say, which he was certain there was. He needed to know what had happened to Elizabeth that day, and he wasn't going to stop until he got to the truth. Alyssa started off by recounting her day. She said she had come back from school at around 3:30 and then had gone for a walk in the forest at around 4:30, 5 p.m. They now knew she was never at school that day, so she was already trapping herself in lies. She said she was supposed to take Emma on a walk with her, but ditched her as she was annoying, and instead went walking alone. She claimed she had come back about an hour later and was up in her room when she heard Emma shouting for help from outside. Sergeant Rice got her to retrace her steps with a map he had printed out.
As a single mom and a professional, busy is an understatement.
I was working out and I wasn't getting the results that I wanted.
I wanted to be firmer. Exercise and diet didn't seem to be doing the job. Cold Stone takes your hard work further by strengthening and defining muscles. I have actual, real, and noticeable results.
Seeing the definition motivated me to keep working out.
I felt stronger. You've come this far. Cool Tone takes you further. Ask your provider about Cool Tone.
Now, the thing about this map, I don't think it has where your actually houses. So the way I understand the new house would be right back here, is that right? Okay, let's say the new house is ballpark here.
I'm not exactly sure how far back it is. It's like past all the clearings, and then when it starts to get too small on the trail.
So, how long, when you got home about 3:30, how long were you at home? Messing around?
I was home at least an hour.
Okay, so about 4:30 or 5.
Right. Well, there's a, I believe that between Lyview and the trail,
Alyssa said after this, everybody went to church and got home at around 8 p.m. Rice then changed the line of questioning and moved on to the holes around her garden and around the woods. Alyssa calmly admitted to having dug them herself, but said it was because she liked digging holes and sometimes buried dead animals in them.
Well, there's been, of course, folks out there out in the forest, I guess, digging some holes or looking at some holes. It's said that you like to go out there, dig holes, so I'm going to have to ask you some stuff about yourself. Tell me about these holes you dig.
Well,
You dig them a certain way? Just wherever they're at? I mean, do you dig at a certain spot or what? And you can understand why, as people were out and were looking for, looking for a person if they were lost, or God forbid, looking for if they thought it was, God forbid, a body. Have you dug a hole like this before then, or is this the first time?
it's not completely my face, but it's like kind of like that. Like
So
big
this,
enough for a shoebox.
okay, but this is the first time of that size.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what about the big brown ones? But I kept falling in. I don't get your deep. And I get on the
You guys could swim this would be dangerous.
It's like a pussy right there. That's where it's
Sure.
at.
I mean, they're huge.
Okay.
It's like 3 to 4 of them.
He then said, "What kind of person do you think would do this to a 9-year-old girl?" Alyssa shrugged and said, "I don't know, a sick person, someone that can put down all their morals." She was still maintaining that she had never been out with Elizabeth on her own. It was always in a group of siblings, and she had been trying her best to help find her as well.
What do you know about this whole investigation or mess?
She's still missing. They're out looking for her. They don't like my mom here. This is really big. They've had helicopters
Yeah, they have.
searching as well. And that's pretty much what I know. I really don't think she would run away because she's done. I think that maybe someone kidnapped her or something. Terrible baby. I don't know. Maybe.
Is there anybody in that area you can think of that would, this comes to mind, you would think that would do that? Is there anybody that, knowing your neighbors, that would?
After this, he started asking questions about Elizabeth's phone, explaining that the data did not lie, and it was indicating that her phone was somewhere behind Alyssa's house, which he showed her on a map. He then moved on to Alyssa's house and her bedroom.
Now, it's my understanding that did the FBI do a search or something of the house where you guys live? Tell me about that. What was that all about? You said they searched your room.
Yeah.
Other marijuana seeds and that sort of stuff. Did they find anything?
Nope.
Okay, did they take anything?
They took my sheets and got the pillowcase.
Okay. Did they take anything else?
I don't think so. I haven't been surveyed anything.
Okay. Okay.
We keep some clothes
Oh, they took a pair of pants.
and a diary. When they gave us the list, it's not all coming from what was on the list. There's a process.
Your diary. Okay. You ever gone through your diary?
I did it.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know that?
No.
Did it make you angry?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of your private, personal thoughts, is it?
When Rice confronted her about the entries, including the one that had been scribbled over, the interview would take a drastic turn.
We talked a little bit earlier about technology.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you write something